And I'm Layla Fadel.
And I'm Tiffany Hansen. Glad you're with us this morning. It's Morning Edition here on WNYC. If you have to be somewhere by 9 o'clock, you got about 10 minutes or so to get there. You may encounter a few delays, however. Delays on northbound 6 and 8 trains. The MTA says commuter rail customers can expect delays, cancellations, diversions near Grand Central thanks to signal troubles on the roads. Not much better. A water main break on Baltic Street, the eastbound side at Henry Street in Cobble Hill. All lanes closed there until further notice. The BBC NewsHour also on the way just about 10 minutes from now. Let's check in to see what they're working on. Good morning, London.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Paul Henley. On today's NewsHour, the UN and the Israeli government as the ceasefire in Gaza ends. And we ask about vested interests at the COP Climate Summit. That's BBC NewsHour coming up at 9 on WNYC.
Well, Breezy Point, not particularly breezy this morning. Just a light wind, about 8 miles per hour, 44 degrees. Diker Heights, you're at 43. Great Neck, going down 42 degrees. We are at 44 now in the city.
WNYC supporters include Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai Spine, experts use the latest minimally invasive techniques to treat complex spine problems while minimizing pain and recovery time. Mount Sinai, we find a way. Find a doctor at mountsinai.org/spine.
On the next All of It, the Muskogee Nation used to be one of only a handful of federally recognized tribes with an independent press. But that changed in 2018 when the Tribal Council voted to put the press under tribal government control. The Sundance Award-winning documentary Bad Press details the fight to claw back those freedoms. We'll speak with the directors. I'm Allison Stewart. Join me for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
The people with state-of-the-art info about the health of the U.S. economy have spent a lot of time in front of microphones this week.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Betterment, the automated investing platform that helps make it easy to be invested for the long term. Learn more at Betterment.com. Investing involves risk.
I'm David Brancaccio from Washington, D.C. today. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell speaks later this morning after other Fed officials have been especially chatty of late. This ahead of what's called a quiet period that precedes the next interest rate meeting later this month. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer sums up the emerging economic portrait.
Earlier this week, Fed Governor Christopher Waller appeared to open the door just a crack to the possibility of a cut in interest rates. The Fed has been raising rates to cool the economy and tamp down inflation. In a speech on Tuesday, Waller said,
"So I'm encouraged by what we've learned in the past few weeks. Something appears to be giving, and it's the pace of the economy."
But Waller was quick to add there's still a lot of economic uncertainty, and he can't say for sure the Fed is winning its battle with inflation. On Wednesday, Richmond Fed President Thomas Barkin told CNBC there are signs the economy is cooling.
I'm hearing consumer slowing down. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing consumer falling off the table. I'm hearing normalizing, not recession, but I am hearing consumer slowing down.
But Barkin wasn't ready to talk about a cut in interest rates. He says inflation is going to be stubborn. And in a panel discussion last month, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said inflation had given the Fed a few head fakes, and Fed officials won't hesitate to raise interest rates again, quote, if it becomes appropriate. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
The oil producers cartel OPEC Plus announced the group has agreed to keep production in a lower gear, affecting about 2% of global supply into the early part of next year. This was a bid to prop up prices, yet oil prices fell on the news. Marketplace's Nova Safo explains.
The latest announcement from OPEC Plus essentially maintains the status quo through March. So far, that has failed to significantly prop up oil prices, even though the alliance accounts for about 40% of global oil production. The problem is that markets are anticipating even less demand next year than OPEC countries so far have been willing to cut. That's because of a likely slowdown in consumption as the post-pandemic boom fades and major economies slow. Meanwhile, the U.S. is pumping out about 1 million barrels of more oil each day than it did a year ago, potentially adding to a supply glut. OPEC Plus could pack a bit more punch next year. It announced Brazil, an emerging oil producer, will join the alliance in January. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
At the moment this morning, crude oil is up slightly, about $76 a barrel. Stocks S&P futures are down 0.2% after the index rose 9% in the month just ended.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by C3 Generative AI. Verified traceable answers, secure, hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free. Learn more at c3.ai.
Today is World AIDS Day. It's an annual moment to remember people lost and for education in the ongoing battle against HIV/AIDS, the epidemic that emerged more than 4 decades ago. With medical advancements, there are a number of tools available to help prevent HIV. Today here, a focus on a powerful medical approach that experts say is underused. Pre-exposure prophylaxis, known as PrEP, is a highly effective approach to prevent HIV, and there are different ways to deliver PrEP, but uptake has been slow. For more, my Marketplace colleague Sabri Benishur spoke with Anne Nealon, an infectious disease specialist and professor at Harvard.
PrEP has been around in one form or another for many years. Has it shown up in the data as to HIV transmission rates?
So PrEP has been around since 2014, and it's just amazing to be able to offer an option to prevent HIV to patients who are at increased risk. It is really a game changer. And in the trials, the efficacy is really astonishing. If taken daily or if taken as prescribed, it can be up to 99% effective, daily oral PrEP. And in fact, in the studies that looked at comparing injectable PrEP to oral PrEP, actually injectable PrEP was even better. And in part, that was because those studies were sort of taking all comers. It didn't look at the subset of individuals who could take PrEP daily really, really well, because it's really hard for anybody to take a pill daily, meaning that it is not as effective if you're not able to take that pill daily.
How much does it cost to be on PrEP?
Well, it depends on where you live and who you are and what kind of PrEP you're taking. So, if you were to look at the Merck Cuban pharmacy recently, you would see that the medication price for generic oral TDF-FTC, that option that's been around since 2014, it's less than 50 cents a day for that medication. But if you were going to look at the branded Descovy price, it would be about $18,000 annually, and cabotegravir is north of that. What the patient bears really depends on their health insurance coverage, so it can really vary widely.
For the higher end versions of PrEP, why are they so expensive?
That is a great question that is not entirely transparent to those of us who've worked in this field for a while. It's often the case that newer and better drugs are priced as being more costly than their alternatives, but it's not really clear how those prices are created. Oftentimes it's cited that it's the research and development cost that goes into it, but it's not a transparent formula that one can Google and look up online. It's also the case that over time, the medications, both for treating HIV and for preventing HIV, that their increase in price has exceeded that of inflation. So the answer is I don't know, but it is astonishing, the vast difference, and it doesn't necessarily correspond to value.
Dr. Anne Nealon is an infectious disease specialist and professor at Harvard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For people looking for more about HIV prevention and treatment, Dr. Nealon suggests looking at PrEP for All. So you search PrEP, numeral 4, then the word all, PrEP for All, as well as consulting info from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The publisher Penguin Random House and some prominent authors have now filed a federal lawsuit to curb the banning of books in Iowa. The suit targets a new Iowa law banning books from any school library or classroom that describes sex. The law also bans books that address gender orientation or gender identity for students K through 6. The suit argues the law is overbroad and unconstitutional. In Washington, D.C. today, I'm David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.